Hello, growers. If you enjoy podcasts like this one, tune into my podcast In Search of Soil on YouTube for a deep dive into the mysteries beneath our feet. Join me as I explore topics such as mycorrhizal fungi, mushrooms, compost, biochar, and more. It's a soil nerd's dream. We're going deep. We're talking to scientists about all things soil related. Whether you're a seasoned farmer or a gardener just starting out, our podcast has something for everyone. Listen in and grow with us. Check out In Search of Soil on YouTube. When you look at the impact of herbivores in these systems, wild or domestic, there's a lot of things they're doing. They're pruning the grass, they're distributing nutrients through their manure and urine, they're trampling some down, creating some surface mulch. If you could pin it down, obviously they're doing a lot of things, but if you could pin it down to one of the most important things they're doing, what is it?
You mean important things for
The health, the
sustaining?
health of the
Okay.
rangeland.
Yeah, the health of the rangeland. I think their biggest effect is herbivory. So they have two main effects, as you say. They have a herbivory effect, they're removing pasture, but they have what we call an engineering effect. And that engineering effect is generally disturbing the soil, cutting the grass, moving stuff around. It's a what we'd call a non-trophic effect. They're not consuming stuff, but they're changing it. I've never really thought about never really come to a decision about the relative importance of both those processes. I'm more interested in the engineering effect because I'm more interested in soil health, soil stability, landscape function, stuff like that. I think that removal of is critically important, and I think that's probably their biggest role. So when they're removing plants, they're not just indiscriminately taking plants. They're coming along and they're taking the nicest bits of the plant, the nutrient rich ends of the grasses, and they're helping to change the balance between above ground and below ground processes. And that's critically important. And we know that herbivores in the Serengeti, for example, the removal of all that top grass or some of that top grass does fantastic things to the roots. It enhances root growth and enhances carbon in the soil. So I suspect that the biggest effect that they're having in productive grassland systems is through herbivory. But if we're talking about arid systems that are, to use your term, brittle, then the biggest effect that herbivores are having, I believe, is on the soil surface. So, for example, in places like the Middle East, Palestine, Israel, there's 3,000 years of goat grazing and sheep grazing. And it's done two things. It's altered the vegetation composition from palatable perennial plants to fairly unpalatable shrubs that have recalcitrant chemicals, things that herbivores don't really like to eat. But it's also changed the soil surface dramatically. And that soil surface has now gone over a threshold where it'll never be the same again. And we could probably say the same for large areas of Australia. We've lost that topsoil. We're down to a more impenetrable, harder subsoil. And a lot of that's got to do with the movement of animals, the movement of hooves on the soil. So I guess I haven't really answered your question, but I think it depends what sort of system you're in. If we're in a beautiful grassland in Wyoming, then animal movement's probably not that important in my view. It's probably the herbivory, the grass production. But if we're looking at in the Middle East, in Egypt, in wherever, Saudi Arabia, it's the disturbance to the soil that's probably the most important.
What about below the soil? Some of the work that's being done there by different macrofauna. I know you've done some work on ants and termites and some of the work that they do to engineer the subsoil. What's been the most mind-opening thing you've learned about that?
I think all of these macroinvertebrates, ants, termites, slaters, all those sorts of things, they're doing a couple of things. One of the things is that they're breaking down organic matter and making it available for fungi, bacteria, microbes. But the other thing that they're doing, which is to me is fascinating, is that they're creating pores in the soil. They're creating these little channels, these pipes. And what that does is it's linking the soil surface with the subsurface. So they're putting oxygen into the soil. Now we know that when we grab a bit of soil, 50% is oxygen, 25% is minerals, and 25% is water. So you got a quarter water, a quarter minerals, but 50% air. It's critically important that you get air into the soil. And one of the things that livestock do, if they're poorly managed, is that they trample the soil and push out all those pores. They reduce the porosity, or they increase the density of the soil. They get rid of all that air. You need that air. Along come ants and termites, digging little holes, burrows, and there's lots of other things too that dig holes and burrows. Your big things. In the Snake River Plain in the US, you've got ground squirrels and badgers digging holes, and they're having a huge effect. You've got in northern China, on the Tibetan Plateau, you have pikas and zokas doing exactly the same thing. They're building tunnels into the soil. Now, what do those tunnels do? They get air into the soil, but they also get water into the soil. And that's critically important because it provides a pipeline for moving water into the soil, which the subsoil needs. But it also prevents the loss of water from the surface. So instead of us losing in dry lands all that water when it runs across the surface, it gets caught in these little tunnels and little pipelines and gets into the soil. So it's preventing erosion and it's enhancing soil function. So these guys are pretty damn important.
Yeah, it's always interesting looking at some of I don't know what material they use, but they'll pour things into some of these termite mounds or holes or antholes and essentially make a cast of it.
Yeah.
And then dig it out. And they're enormously elaborate for such a tiny insect to have something that can be 10 feet tall when you bring it above ground and see it in front of you is wow. All these little things built at it. It's pretty mind-opening.
There's an amazing photo and I can't remember the guy's name now. He sent me the photo for a book chapter that I wrote. And he worked on harvester ants in the US. I can't remember where it was. Might have been in the Midwest. And he poured a substance into their nest and then excavated it. And then there's a photo of him standing up next to a cast of this nest. And it's taller than he is. It's huge, with all these anastomosing channels, and it's just insane. And those harvester ants are having a huge impact on the soil, as well as bringing material down into the subsoil, of course.
Yeah, between them and the organisms on the surface, like the lichens, they're performing all these functions that people take for granted. Hey there, want to spend less time pulling weeds? Check out Soil Shield by Modern Grower. It's the pre-cut landscape fabric solution to help you drastically reduce weed pressure. Just roll it out, staple it down, and plant. Then let it do the work for you. Say goodbye to endless weeding and hello to more free time. Plus, it's high quality, durable, and will last for years, saving you time and money in the long run. It's available in a variety of row and hole spacings to accommodate all the crops that vegetable farmers grow. Learn more about Soil Shield landscape fabric at shop.moderngrower.co or using the link below.